Welcome to another episode of the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. Today, we are excited to have Wade Swikle, a serial entrepreneur, podcast host, and emerging author, as our guest. Wade is the founder and CEO of Two College Brothers Moving, Storage and Franchising. He's the host of Grow Your Moving Company podcast and the co-founder of Moving Titan Retreats. Starting his moving company with just $600 and a pickup truck at the age of 21, while still a student at the University of Florida, Wade has grown it into a multi-million-dollar business with multiple locations, and he's even franchising. He's also the host of the longest actively running moving industry podcast, and he co-founded Moving Titan Retreats, a mastermind retreat for ambitious moving company owners worldwide. With a master's degree in entrepreneurship and ownership of 5 businesses, Wade's expertise spans franchising, marketing and sales, collegiate entrepreneurship, home service business ownership, systems and process development, and much, much more. Join us as we delve into Wade's entrepreneurial journey, his insights on business growth, and his experiences in the moving industry. This is another can't miss episode. You won't want to miss this one. Let's get started.
Welcome to Inappropriate Growth, the podcast where we get real about the grind behind the glory. I'm Paul, your host, and I'm here to take you on a journey through the untold stories of business triumphs. We might raise some eyebrows, but it's all about the hustle and we don't fit the mold. Here we're talking about the kind of effort that doesn't just push the envelope, it shreds it to pieces. We're building a community where the norm is to defy norms. So buckle up, because we're diving deep into the beginnings that were anything but humble. The times when giving up seemed like the only option. We'll also dig into all of those wild, insane, and out-of-the-box strategies that led to massive growth. From growth hacks to best practices, this podcast will be fast, furious, and should be a whole lot of fun. Join us as we redefine what it means to grow and turn business growth into an art form. Welcome to Inappropriate Growth.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. I have with me Mr. Wade Swikle. Please tell me I didn't butcher that name too bad.
You got it perfect. You're one of the few that gets it perfect the first time.
Well, I'm on a roll. All right. Well, Wade, to save me the trouble, why don't you tell me where you are and how you got there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in Tampa, Florida right now, if you need the exact location, but I'm the owner. I've got 6 businesses total that I either own outright or am a partner in. My primary business is Two College Brothers Moving and Storage, and it was a company that I started in college at the age of 21 at the University of Florida. I was working on a master's degree in entrepreneurship up there, and all my classmates were trying to start the next sexy app. Uber and Facebook were big coming onto the scene at that point in time, and everybody wanted to do something technology wise. And here I was just trying to start a moving company. I'd worked as a mover, kind of freelance, and then for another company for a little bit. And it was a business that I understood. And I love the idea of starting my own business and doing it with something, hands-on, physical. I was a college baseball player. So I love to just work out and be active. And so my original company was called Smarter Moving Solutions. And the original Two College Brothers actually started a couple years before me in Gainesville. And I looked up to that company. They were kind of my role model at the time. They had a lot of market share across the university landscape. And I kept one of their flyers on my desk. And when I started my company, they were our biggest competitors. Competed against them for 2 summers. And one day I got a call that they wanted to move on to bigger, better things. And I had just graduated from my master's degree and was pursuing my moving company full time. And they reached out that they wanted to sell it. And I made them an offer for whatever I could scrape together and afford. And they ended up accepting it. And that was about 11 years ago, actually. And so they, at that point in time, had several satellite offices across Florida, Tallahassee, Orlando, Miami. And once I kind of got under the hood, I realized that those locations weren't really doing anything, and they were more of a deterrent, a distractor than anything. So I decided to close those down, just focus on our main location in Gainesville. And I had always wanted to franchise. I had always wanted to open more locations. And so when the time was right in 2015, I decided to open up a location in Tampa, Florida, which is about an hour north of where I'm originally from. Much larger market, more urban, much different landscape than what I was used to in Gainesville. And I thought, hey, we're growing like crazy here in Gainesville. It's got to be the same down here in Tampa. And it wasn't. The things that worked in Gainesville did not work in Tampa. And I had to totally go back to the drawing board and just really spread myself thin for about 3 years, going back and forth every other day and trying all these different things. And finally, I went to a moving conference. This new moving consultant had just come onto the scene. He sold his companies for about $20 million, they were doing about $20 million. He sold them. I don't know what they sold for, but he started getting into consulting, went out there, and at that conference, it's like a light bulb went off. Like, he gave me the systems, the processes, the sales processes, the marketing strategies. He taught me what KPIs to look at. His name was Louis Massaro. And from that point on, things just started to explode. And around that same time, I started a podcast for the moving industry. It was the first moving industry specific podcast, and is currently still the longest actively running moving industry podcast, called the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. And I was just bringing on people that I was meeting at these conferences and just through Facebook groups, just to pick their brain and try to reverse engineer this business and learn everything I possibly could about it. And through the podcast, through working with Louis Massaro, through some of the Facebook forums and groups for moving company owners, basically just learned everything I possibly could. I've always been a student of business well after my college years. I like to say that I learned more in my first year of running an actual business than I did in all 5 years of college, including the master's degree in entrepreneurship. Yeah, school of hard knocks. And so big into business books, big into podcasts, big into audiobooks, seminars, whatever you want to call it. And here we are. We are a franchising company. I've realized that dream. We sold the original location as a franchise up in Gainesville. We just opened another. That was about a year ago. We just opened another franchise in San Antonio, Texas, earlier this year. We're still growing our Tampa office. I think our Tampa Bay market is really big to dig into. Still do the podcast. And from the podcast and just, through networking with all these different moving company owners around the world, we've put together another business that's called the Moving Titan Retreat. And this is a conference hosting business. Me and one other moving company owner are the hosts and the founders of that. And we bring together moving company owners, home service experts, just people that are at the top of their field to speak for a 3-day event twice a year. And it's also just like a mastermind event. And so we've been doing that for about 2 years, a little over 2.5 years now. We've got our next one coming up in October. We're bringing in some really heavy hitters to that. Through that, we rolled out a training program called Tighten Up Training. That's its own little business too, where we brought in a couple other moving company owners and pooled our knowledge and resources to build a world-class online training course for everything moving, whether it's training the movers, the sales, marketing, leadership. We even have fitness in there. We're going to be adding operations and finances to it. So those are kind of the core businesses that I operate now. I've also got a couple small kind of hobby businesses on the side. I've got a boat rental business where I found a way to turn an asset or an otherwise liability into an asset that is a boat, and basically have a toy pay for itself. Looking at possibly adding a car to that next as like a transportation rental business. And then I'm a co-owner in a wiffle ball league. So all those years of playing baseball, I played wiffle ball in my backyard, front yard with my little brother for years and years and years. And I still play competitive wiffle ball. And now I'm a co-owner in our league. It's called the Suncoast Wiffle League here in the west coast of Florida. And that's just a lot of fun. We don't make a lot of money with that, but it's a really good outlet to just get out, get some exercise, and expand the network even more. So got my hands full. I have a book that I've written is hopefully going to be released and published later this year. So I'm currently navigating that process and continuing to try to grow the franchise and grow our primary market here in Tampa Bay. We're talking with some private equity people about the possibility of using all these platforms to facilitate a private equity roll up in the very fragmented moving and storage industry. So lots of exciting things on the horizon.
Navigating the industry. I mean, it's a competitive industry is would probably be an understatement. There's a lot of players, and how did you differentiate your business in the early days to stand out from other companies?
Yeah, so I like to say that it's a low barrier to entry, but it's a high barrier to success. Exactly what you said. A lot of competition. Anybody can theoretically go start a moving company with a truck. I started with $600 in a pickup truck myself, and you see a lot of these fly by night mom and pop things. There's the industry is notorious for scammers and shady operators and brokers that that aren't actual moving companies and pose as moving companies. So there's kind of a stigma in the business. And when I first started out as a college student, I was under kind of the impression that, in a business full of kind of shady, rough, blue collar people would trust a college educated person, somebody who is either going through a graduate school or had had a college degree. There's not a lot of moving company owners or people that even work in it with college degrees. So that was kind of how I differentiated things at first. And to be completely honest, we've outgrown the name a little bit at this point, but it kind of speaks more to the beginnings of it. The story behind it. And because of the stigma, there's a low bar set in our business. I heard a stat that if in any home services, if you just answer the phone, you separate yourself from 70% of the competition. So, combine that, not only just answering the phone, but actually having a sales process, having people that have certain roles, having follow-up processes and scripts and unique selling propositions. We've got a raving fan money back guarantee. And in a business where movers are constantly scamming people and taking their money, we're willing to give their money back to people if they don't have a good experience. And so it holds our entire team accountable to providing that raving fan experience. And our mission is to create a raving fan on every move with 5-star service. And that's I feel like the best way to grow any business is to just consistently provide that amazing experience that people are going to rave about to their family, friends, coworkers, anybody they come in contact with that are moving. And to this day, our highest source of new business is through repeat referral business. We've got a great affiliate program to kind of dial that in to further expand it. But it really comes down to the service and the training, which is also what helped us get into like the training side of the business with the retreat and the training program. We really are a role model in our industry for people that are looking to provide a professional experience for people that are relocating, because it's a stressful time in people's life. And there's a lot of people that they don't need the added stress of a moving company that's going to lowball them or bait and switch or send out a bunch of convicted felons or drug addicts or whatever to their home to handle their prized possessions and their belongings. So we background check our guys. They're all W-2 uniform trained employees. We drug test their drivers so that we just set the bar in an industry where not a lot of people do that. And in order to do that, you can't be the cheapest company, and there's always going to be a cheaper company out there. But in order to provide that professional experience for the clientele that we're looking for, we still are able to use economies of scale and leverage, having multiple locations to consolidate a lot of those costs to still be an affordable business, but offer that premium service. So, it's taken over 10 years, over a decade to really build the reputation, and trying to recapture a lot of that business through email marketing and digital marketing, and just getting really well versed and, all the different components with that. Of course, we do a lot of marketing in addition to all the repeat and referral business that we get, but part of that marketing goes to capturing that repeat and referral business. And then, the other marketing is going out and finding new customers and getting in front of people that are likely to be moving, whether they're renting or selling their homes or buying a home. We connect with a lot of people in the real estate space. We advertise on our MLS. We We send direct mail postcards, and we skip trace addresses to find emails to be able to get in front of people that have just listed their homes. We advertise on local radio, where we're endorsed by a really popular local DJ in the Tampa area, or a radio show host in the Tampa area. We've got all the digital stuff dialed in with the Google LSA and the Facebook and social media marketing, SEO. All of that plays a big role to find new people out there. And really just trying to find any way that we possibly can to get in front of people that are moving so that they don't have a bad experience with some of those shady players.
And you mentioned the shady players, and I'm just thinking as a consumer, and maybe outside of one of your markets, is there anything, like, I was recently stunned to find out that there is a testing process and a licensing process to be a florist in Louisiana. I thought that was odd. But a lot of industries do have certification, or is there anything like that in your industry?
There's really not, and that's what we're trying to create with our Tighten Up training program. We're trying to basically create almost like, if you go to get your real estate license, you have to go through real estate school and pass a test. And that's what we're trying to create, because in most states, and maybe some states do have some kind of a test that, or something you have to complete, but in Florida and Texas, you really just have to be able to provide insurance and basically not have been blacklisted from being able to get it from doing something shady in the past. But that doesn't mean that there aren't players that are able to circumnavigate that process. But there is not a lot of qualifying factors to start a moving company now, and we really are trying to change that and increase that barrier a little bit, because I mean, you're sending out people with 26,000-pound trucks that can cause a lot of damage going into people's homes, handling their prized possessions, and getting around family members and seeing the ins and outs of how people live. And it doesn't make sense that there aren't those qualifying tests or factors beyond just basic insurance. So we're trying to lobby with local governments and insurance companies to turn our training program into that certification. There used to be something called the American Moving and Storage Association, and that actually has disbanded. They were kind of absorbed by the American Trucking Association, but they had some certifications that were extremely outdated. I think they still have those certifications through the ATA, American Trucking Association, but they're not required by any means. Most people don't even know they exist. It's not to say they don't have necessarily good content. It's just very outdated stuff. And so with our program, we've provided, high production value, Netflix grade camera production, to make it engaging. The videos are bite-sized, usually 2 to 5 minutes long with quizzes after each one. You can track your team's progress. There's leaderboards and badges, so it gamifies the process. And so, we're trying to change that. We're trying to revolutionize the entire industry, because it's a $25 billion industry, and that's a decent size industry by any measurement. And with that being said, it's also extremely fragmented. And we're looking at ways we can consolidate that and help the good guys win and prevent the bad guys from continuing to get in.
Okay. Well, I mean, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but as your business expanded, what, what can you remember as far as unexpected challenges that you faced, and how did you have to adapt your processes?
Man, the first 5 to 7 years was, a new problem every day. We didn't know what we didn't know. And, I wish it was as simple as just getting in a truck and picking up some heavy stuff and bringing it to another place. But, a lot of it was trial and error. Once I discovered how to connect with other moving company owners, and the SOPs of the people that had been very successful in this space, and I had that roadmap, it really did transform everything. And we no longer had to just go from trial and error from our own experience, but we could draw on other people's experience. And that's what kind of led me into franchising, is because we're able to now lay that blueprint for a prospective franchisee that may not have any moving experience, but they want to own a business that they can understand. and they have the work ethic, they have the capital behind them to do it the right way, so that they don't have to spend the first, half a decade spinning their wheels and causing the damage claims and not knowing how to handle them, and not have the right paperwork in order, and not know how to handle sales calls and know what marketing is going to be effective, or how to even measure that marketing, if it's going to be effective, if they try something new. So in the beginning, it was just trial and error. We would have a situation that would come up, and we'd have to find a way to combat it. But through seeking out that mentorship, we were able to learn a lot faster how to deal with those same situations, and find the best one that somebody else had already found, and just model their success. There were many times where I didn't know if we were going to be in business the next month in the early days. And I don't want to see that from somebody who has the entrepreneurial bug like I did and wants to go into business. I want them to be able to have a plan, that all they have to do is follow the recipe. And that's what our franchise is all about. I remember back in 2017, we took on a huge commercial project that very, very closely put us out of business. It was just like day by day, one day at a time, and learned a ton of really valuable lessons from that. And it's made us so much stronger now, having gone through it. But I don't know if I could have gotten through it without finding the mentorship and seeking out the answers from people that had been there before. So yeah, I mean, I've got lots of stories. A lot of those are going to be shared in the book that I'll be releasing in a few months.
Well, I mean, taking a moving company from a single location to this, multi-site or multi-billion-dollar business with multiple locations, that's impressive. A lot of companies want to say they did that. What were the key milestones in the journey?
Yeah.
How do you maintain, or how did you maintain quality control in San Antonio when you're in Tampa?
Yeah, well, quality control comes down to systems and processes, and those aren't just the day-to-day operations. It's also how to find the right people that are going to follow those systems and processes. So that's a big piece there, and then having the support behind them to handle things like customer service. To make sure that if there is an issue, there's somebody that has a process to follow to handle that issue, because sometimes it's not just the issue at hand that people are going to remember. It's how those issues were handled. And I think that goes for just about any business. As far as milestones, I mean, I think the first big one was, obviously getting started, but purchasing the other company, learning how they were doing things, opening the next location. That was a huge learning lesson. And then we won some awards in 2016 at our first location in Gainesville. We won the Best Overall Small Business of the Year award through the Chamber of Commerce. And we were voted the best movers by the local newspaper for, I think, 5 or 6 years in a row. So those were definitely big ones. Of course, COVID came along, and that was a big change and a big shift in our market. That's when we got into storage. We invested in a big warehouse in Tampa, and we've got about 11,400 square feet here that we do palletized vaulted storage out of. So I think that was a big milestone. And then franchising. Franchising was a whole new animal. I mean, that's a separate business from the day-to-day moving company. That's more about having all those SOPs dialed in, building out the support infrastructure and the branding and the all the back end stuff, and then just being there to coach and support the franchisees. So that's probably our most recent major milestone. But we just hit a smaller one over the weekend. We got our 1,000th Google review and maintained a 4.9 Google rating here in Tampa. Gainesville's pretty close to that. They're going to be next. And, so there's little milestones along the way, of course. And so those I'd say were some of the big ones, though.
All right. Well, you mentioned marketing. You mentioned that most of your leads or your new business is coming from old clients, referrals from old clients. I'm curious about professional referrals, where you kind of partner with relocation or real estate companies. But what creative marketing tactics did you employ early that worked without a large budget that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, relationship building doesn't require much of a budget at all. It just requires a lot of sweat equity, pounding the pavement, getting out and putting your name out there, giving back to your community, doing charity moves for free, and just having an organized, coordinated effort to get your name out there. And even to this day, we have our entire team. We have a daily sales huddle where not only just sales, but everybody in the administrative side of the company uh, reaches out to a new contact every day. So if we each reach out to a new person every day to try to build a connection with them, to set up a coffee meeting or a realtor lunch and learn presentation, whatever it may be, that's 365 connections a year per person, and then you scale that with 10 people on inside the office, and you're hitting thousands of new prospective referral partners every single day. And we've got a lot of marketing materials, a lot of different approaches to get in front of them. A lot of the low hanging fruit is to pull emails and phone numbers off of their business websites and call, text, email them, trying to get creative to get in front of them, get past the gatekeepers, sending them things in the mail. We work with a local company called C Suites, and it's spelled C-SWEETS, and they send little care packages out to anybody that we send them to send those to. So, you might get sales calls and emails and things in the mail all day and ignore. But then when you get a box with a bunch of locally sourced, goodies, you're going to remember that. You're going to think, oh, wow, this person's been trying to get a hold of me and now they just sent me all this stuff. Maybe I will give them the time of day. So, but digital flyers, connecting with people on social media. Almost everybody has some kind of social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever. So we can look people up on those and try to direct message them or add them as friends and share their posts if they're a realtor and they have a listing, like their stuff, comment on their stuff, and just, put our name where their clientele who might need our services is going to be. And over time, that just compounds and just leads to a lot of that referral business, or at least somebody who's curious enough to call in and get a quote.
Right. All right. Well, entrepreneurship often comes with some self-doubt, right? I mean, it never really 100% goes away, in my experience. But what were the moments where when you questioned your decisions? You mentioned you thought you were going to be out of business, but how did you push through those incidents or doubts?
Yeah. No, I mean, you got to have thick skin if you're going to start a business. You're going to get those difficult customers. You're going to have difficult employees. You're going to have bad days. But ultimately, if you've got that genetic makeup, that drive to find a solution rather than just look at the problems and not be a victim, if there's a will, there's a way. And the thing about business is, like, it's not so much about the destination, because there's never really like a final destination unless you're trying to maybe do a big exit or something. But then what do? You continue on that journey and do something new with the experience that you've gained. It's all about just that journey. The person who can stay in it the longest tends to win. And what we're seeing right now with the interest rates as high as they are and the economy really shaky, being an election year, a lot of people are afraid to buy or sell a home right now. They don't know what's going to happen. They want to wait for the interest rates to go down, and so that's definitely played a big impact on our market, and it's causing a big shakeout in the moving industry. But I look at that as an opportunity. You just have to you got to deal with the hand that you're dealt, and look at what could be a problem to one person as an opportunity for another. And with a shakeout, that means more market share for us if we hang on and continue to plug away and expand our business while other people are contracting theirs. And we saw that during COVID too. Even though interest rates were low and the moving market was actually really hot during COVID, a lot of companies just froze up and they were scared, and or they couldn't find staff that was willing to work and go out into a customer facing job. And so the hiring challenges were really, really difficult during COVID. Even though the business was there, it was tough to find people. And again, there was a shakeout with the people that couldn't get through that. And now we're having the opposite, where the hiring has gotten a lot better, but the business has slowed down. So it's like now the best team we've ever had, but we don't have as much opportunities and leads coming in as we did a couple of years ago. So it just forced us to kind of go back in and reevaluate some things and lean out and run more efficiently, because we couldn't afford to make a lot of mistakes. So we had to dig in and see what was the highest producing marketing sources, who are the highest producing employees, what do we need, what do we not need, and it's actually allowed our business to become a lot healthier than it was, even though a lot of businesses are struggling and going away, because we took those proactive steps and kind of saw it coming and just leaned out to operate as efficiently as possible. So, you just got to look for the opportunity, all the silver linings in any form of adversity, because it's going to come. If you start a business, there's going to be those setbacks.
Hiring and retaining people is essential, and evaluating and knowing what you have. All these trends, all these ebbs and flows with business. What strategies do you use to assemble a reliable team during the early stages of the business?
Yeah, early on, I mean, I leaned on my network that I had. So I was in a fraternity in college, and I knew a lot of people that needed jobs, a lot of college students at the time that were looking for work. So I tapped into that network. And, when you get out into the community and you meet people, you shake the right hands, it opens up doors, and you can just, dig into those networks and ask people if they know anybody. Maybe they have, family members that need a job. Maybe they need a part-time job. Teachers oftentimes need summer work, which is when the moving industry is the busiest, that it gets. Typically, most people move in the summer. So it's, it's an ongoing challenge, but we're always looking for good talent, whether we're out and about in the community, we have great service at a restaurant, waiter is bartender, server, whoever's just has a great attitude. We'll say, hey, do you or anybody else are you looking for any kind of part-time work or full-time work, looking to make a change? And typically high performers hang around other high performers. So if they're not necessarily looking, they probably know somebody who's good that is. And we're always looking to replace our weakest link. And we've got some systems that allow us to evaluate our team on a day-to-day basis and see who the high performers are and who the weaker links are. And we constantly have hiring ads up. We're always doing interviews, and we're always looking for good talent, because there's always somebody that could come along that's better than your worst. So it's just, it's a numbers game at the end of the day. We'll do all the traditional things like posting on Indeed and all the different platforms there. We use a CRM just for hiring called Bamboo HR that allows us to keep application or job postings up on all the different platforms and filter them out and manage those and follow up. We've got a budget just like we do to market to clients, to market to hiring. And, you got to look at it as like an internal budget, and then a budget to market internally to keep your own existing labor force happy and consistent and reinforce the right behaviors amongst them, and to improve that culture and just to maintain the culture. And as the leader of an organization, you're responsible for setting that culture, because there's going to be a culture that develops whether you are intentional about it or not. So why not be intentional and set it in the direction that you want it to go in? So yeah, I mean, it's a constant effort. We might get 100 applications, 50 of them might look good, half of those might show up to an interview. We might hire half of those, and then a handful of those, maybe 3 or 4 people, might end up actually working out for the long term out of 100 applications. So you just got to look at it as a number game, and you have to have a system, process, and the right team members devoted to following them.
But moving, it seems like a relatively simple concept, right? It's coming into a house, packing up stuff, putting it on a truck, bringing it from point A to point B, unpacking it carefully. I mean, the moving industry has evolved. It's not the same as it was just 10 years ago. It's certainly not the same as it was 50 years ago. How do you stay ahead of trends and adapt services to meet what customers are needing or asking for?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, you just got to keep your finger on the pulse with what's going on. So now we have AI, virtual assistants. You can hire somebody in the Philippines to do just, very tedious administrative type things for $10 an hour that, might have a college degree and speak perfect English. I mean, I'm excited to see where AI goes. We have we started beta testing an AI feature on our website where people can just go around their house and take pictures, and it automatically calculates the inventory and then does lead scoring for us. So we know, based off the information they provide, who is going to be a higher quality lead that is likely to convert at a higher rate and pay a higher price. And so, AI can really help with a lot of those things. And it's just continuously learning about those trends and staying, in tune with all of the developments on those technology fronts. Our CRM, the advancements in CRMs have, for our industry, have just become, like exponentially better since when I started off. And through my podcast and the networks, through our Moving Tight Retreat and all that stuff, it allows me access to use those things as a calling card to be the first to get some of these technologies as they develop. I get reached out to all the time with these new companies that want me to beta test their products, and sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. But I get that first kind of mover's advantage, no pun intended, with some of these technologies, and it helps to differentiate us in the market, but it also helps to streamline things and just make things go a lot smoother and more efficient internally. So, next thing I could see, self-driving trucks, electric trucks. Obviously that would save a tremendous amount in fuel as gas prices continue to rise. And then, having drivers that we don't have to pay to go on the road for long hauls. I think there's definitely some storage components that we could do with mobile storage down the road as well. So I'm really excited to see where all that goes. But, private equity, venture capitals, like, they used to be super into the technology stuff, but that is starting to evolve so rapidly that they could invest millions of dollars in something and then it's obsolete a year later. Where home services, I think, still are going to be relevant for a very long time. It's still going to be a very labor, people intensive industry for at least the next decade, 2 decades. I mean, who knows what happens after that, if we're going to have robots doing it all. But hopefully we're in a position to where we can invest in those aspects of it, because people always have to have a place to live. They're always going to have furniture, and they're always going to, need that furniture to find a way to get from point A to point B. And they're likely going to also need storage for that furniture at some point as well.
Well, speaking to new entrepreneurs, if you could go back yourself, 10 years or back, if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, what would it be? I mean, what lessons have shaped this whole journey that, had you known what you know now, then would you have done differently?
Yeah, there's two things. One is to seek out mentorship in the beginning, instead of thinking that, that moving was just what, something simple as bringing things from point A to point B. The business side of it, finding people that were successful, whether they were in my own market or another market, and actively seeking out that mentorship and not waiting 5 to 7 years to do it. The other thing is, I think, is more applicable to any business, is to know your numbers. And the mentorship can help you do that. Figure out how to set up your books, how to set up your profit and loss statement, and learn what a balance sheet means and how it works, so that you can have those conversations with bankers and, anybody else that it makes sense to know. And just all the different KPIs. How do you do a marketing ROI report? What's the average ticket size of your move? What's your conversion rate, your booking rate? What's your average ticket size, and your cost per conversion and your cost per lead? Those are all super important numbers to know. What does your payroll percentages need to be for each department, not just overall, but like, some of them might be in cost of goods sold, like our mover pay, while some of them might be fixed expenses, like our operations team. And then where do sales, need to be? Do you pay them commissions, or are they just paid hourly or a salary? So, a lot of those things, I wish I knew in the beginning. I would have gotten to where I'm at a lot faster had I just known what KPIs and what numbers to look at, and I had the right approach to getting those things in place.
All right. Well, that is awesome. Wade, I really, really appreciate this. It was great learning a lot about the moving industry. I really appreciate it. I really like hearing about your growth and how things are going, and I wish you continued success. And thanks for being a part of our podcast. I will end with, if you're going to grow, you're probably going to have to do something inappropriate.
I love it. Thank you for having me on.